Hello there, guys. Welcome to the MCU Podcast. I'm the MCU Guy. And once again, I am joined by Michael Coffin, the AvengNerd. Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
There's going to be like a round of applause in this bit, like thunderous applause at this point for your return. So, Michael, it's good to have you back on, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back on. How are you doing?
I'm not bad, actually. Yeah, it's. I feel like at the start of every single podcast I've done in the past year, it's always just been tailored around the start of it, going, well, you know what, we're still in lockdown, or we might be coming slightly out of lockdown, but I know what we kind of do for a bit. Like we're about a month and a half away from like total restrictions completely lifted.
Really?
Which
That's
is
good.
very exciting. Yeah, I think it's the 21st of June. The whole restrictions in the UK are going to be lifted, so you can do anything, like no masks. You can go to nightclubs. You can do what. There's no social distancing at all. Like supposedly, like I can't. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to go exactly to plan. This little roadmap that we've been on with the government set out is going well so far. We're allowed to go to hospitality places. We're allowed to go to the gym, but the bulk of it's outside. We move inside in about 2 weeks' time, which is going to be the big test, I think. But all our kids are back in school and stuff, so I'd have thought that would have been the biggest risk, but we're okay at the moment. So I'm feeling quite positive about the fact we're going to finally come to the end of this over here in the UK. But what's it like over there for you guys?
It's okay. It seems like it's dying down quite a bit. But we keep hearing more and more about new strains and things like of that sort. But I mean, who knows at this point? I'm vaccinated. I got both my shots.
Good luck.
Hey, thanks. I didn't get sick. I got really sore on my first shot. I got the Pfizer one. And then my second shot, I just got really just drained, like really tired. And so I slept for like 2 or 3 days, basically. Like I'd get up.
Wow. I
would get up and then I'd like wander around, eat food, go to the bathroom, shower, and then I'd go back to bed. I'd be up for like 4 or 5 hours at a time each day. But then after a few days of it, like my body just kind of got back into the swing of things. So it was fine. And I was also working night shift too. So a lot of that probably came from like just overall sleep deprivation, like the trying to do so many different things at once. But no, I'm good over here. I've just been working on the house. I painted the office room and kind of reorganized some stuff, as you can see. So, but yeah, I've just been working on that type of thing. So I can't complain. It's nice to be able to go out. I was going to say, I've seen you out, on your social media where you were out getting some drinks. You're out getting some drinks or something. I was like, man, that looks nice. Like, because
it's not bad.
My favorite beer is called the Snake Bite, and it's actually like you get like apple, like you get like one of the hard ciders, and then you filter Guinness over it, and it's
whoa. Yeah. Hold your horses, right? So we have snake bites over here in the UK, but it's not Guinness. That is mad. Ours is cider and lager, or like a beer. So but that's our snake bite, and then depending on what part of the UK you're from, so like the north, they put like a blackcurrant cordial in it, or if you were from like certain areas, you put like lime cordial in it. But Guinness and cider is something I've never heard of. I can imagine it be really thick, because obviously Guinness as a stout, it's quite a heavy drink in itself. Like it is. All the cider just not like sink to the top. I mean, go to the top, and the Guinness drop to the bottom.
So if it was a decent enough time to have a drink right now, I'd make one for you right now. I'd show it to you.
Wow.
But you basically take cider and you pour it, and then the top part is actually Guinness. So it's like separated, and when you drink it, the cider comes through the Guinness, and then like it kind of like gets a little bit of a taste of that. But it's super good. It's super good. You should try it.
So it sounds a bit like it sounds like a shandy, which is half lager, half lemonade. That's what it sounds like. It just sounds like a more hardcore version of that. But that sounds. You know what? I'm going to try that. Actually, I'm going to try that this weekend. I'm going to get some funny looks. I'm pretty sure. Like we end up going to like the pub. Me and my brothers, and my father go to the pub that my housemate works at. So it's going to be a bit confusing when I tell him, but I'm going to take a picture of it and I'm going to tag you on Instagram.
Yes.
And I'm going to be like, here we go. This is the American snake bite. Let's get it. That's going to be well good. I'm well excited about that, to be fair. I don't know why I'm excited about it, but I am. You've blown my mind. That's why I'm so amazed. But yeah, exactly. It's like, this is going to be groundbreaking. Okay, right. Well, Michael, let's get onto the topic of why we're here, right? So throughout the whole of Falcon Winter Soldier, we've been doing, apart from like 2 or 3 episodes, we've been doing live stream reactions after every single episode. We've been discussing some of the finer points and and going over as much as we can in the space that we had allotted. But what I wanted to do is let's have a deeper dive into this. Let's have a proper discussion about some of the things that we didn't really have a chance to talk about on these live streams, and that's the whole point of this episode today. So it's Falcon Winter Soldier end of season review / breakdown, like we did for WandaVision. Whereas this time we're not going to be talking about Loki. I'm going to cover that in a different episode, and I'm going to cover the big MCU news in a few weeks' time again with another guest on another episode. But for this one, it's just purely talking about the Falcon Winter Soldier, because you know what? There's a lot to take in with this show. But for my first question to you then, man, is what was your thoughts overall? Because I think was it this one you said that you were the most excited for?
Yeah, this is the show that I was most excited for. Yep. I loved everything about this show. I loved how it really felt like a Captain America movie all the way through. It really did. I mean, the first 3 movies of Captain America all had a major plot point of some sort of government or political issue, and they've all had that. And Civil War was protecting Bucky, and trying to figure out who was actually at the wrong hands here. And then the Winter Soldier movie alone was Steve dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D. being infiltrated, and something wasn't right, and he knew it wasn't right. And that dated back to the first Avengers. And then the first Avenger movie was him, really having this internal struggle of he wants to help protect his country, but he's being told over and over and over that he can't do it. And that all those elements got brought into this show for me with Sam, where he was being told that he can't be Captain America for, obviously, they never listed the specific reason, but we all know what it was. And it was possibly having to do with his skin color. And Isaiah Bradley covered that and told him that. And so there was accepting the role of Captain America and the responsibility of it. And then we had the issues of PTSD being put on the forefront with this show. Systemic racism, as we've talked about before, when that one scene with the kid calls him Black Falcon, he calls him Black Kid in the very humorous way, but it was interesting to see that. And then just overall, I think the show covered the concept of taking on stress levels that are super high and high pressure, and if you're built up for it, and with John Walker, stepping in, you have to try and understand John Walker's point of view as he's being placed as Captain America. And he really doesn't know what he's in for until he gets a little farther in the show. So I loved it. This is my hands down one of my favorite shows. What did you think?
Well, I was about halfway through the show, about half the 2 seasons. I mean, I was a bit I wasn't overly convinced, mainly because episode 1 was cool. It was really good. It was a good opener. And episode 2 was a bit off pace, I think. Episode 3 was decent. 4 was when it started to get good, and then 5 and 6 were the 2 best episodes for me.
Yeah, easily.
But it was just. I don't know. I felt like probably coming down on a bit of a WandaVision high, really, and I was. I prefer, but that's my own fault, because I was trying to think of it as being as good as WandaVision. But again, the 2 completely different shows with 2 different stories and 2 different approaches to the show, and what made WandaVision so great for me was the fact that it was so different from anything the MCU had ever done. So it was like a breath of fresh air, and I loved everything about WandaVision. And it's not that I didn't love this show, because that's not the case at all. It's a fantastic show, but I was expecting more groundbreaking stuff. like WandaVision. But what was good was the fact that they were doing their own thing. And to be fair, like when you break it down and you have time to digest all of it, I was like, it is such a powerful show. And whereas it's not completely different like WandaVision was, but it's different to the MCU because it's tackling things that have never really been touched on before, and they're dealing with real world problems that happen to like every single person on a ground level. And that's what I enjoyed about the fact. I enjoyed that, and when the writer of the show was like talking about it and saying, look, like we're going to be talking about things that the MCU's never gone to before, it made me well excited about it. And I think I was always looking for something bigger than what WandaVision was going to be. But I think WandaVision was a grander scale concept, and like you could tell there's so much more VFX put into that, whereas this was a bit more grounded and a bit more realistic in terms of what we get with the characters that we have in the Captain America like trilogy. So it was really good, and obviously we're gonna get into why it was really good in the next couple of topics. But I think one of the main points was just finally Sam having the shield and being accepted as Captain America was something that I never had a problem with in the slightest, because when he got handed the shield at the end of Endgame, I was like, this is great, because I mean, it doesn't make sense to have Bucky as Captain America at all. Like, Sam thoroughly deserves it because he's a good man, and we've reiterated that in the live streams, where he's just the same as Steve in this way. Like, he's a good guy, and that's the reason why the shield's been passed on to him. And it really shouldn't matter about anything else, the fact that he is the right person for that job. Right. And so I think what we should probably go into, obviously, Sam being Captain America and becoming Captain America. We spoke about the issues with race a lot in these live streams, and we're going to do it again. So, I mean, if people don't want to hear this kind of stuff, then that's your own choice. But we're going to get into this. And first of all, I've seen a lot of stuff online, right? So I follow a lot of people, a lot of creators on a lot of formats like TikTok, and there's a one creator that spoke a lot about this, and he even himself was getting abuse from people saying like, oh, why are you playing the race card? Why are you making everything out to be a race angle? Yeah, and I think it just sums up like the level of idiocy that comes with certain people, not everybody, but like certain people who are not really ready for this kind of progressive bit of television. I mean, what I don't understand what the problem is. Like anyone could see that this was purely based around obviously the struggles that Black people have had over the years, and the fact that people aren't ready to see these kind of characters take on the mantle of certain people. Like, why? Like, what is actually the reason why Sam wouldn't or couldn't be Captain America just because of the colour of his skin? Like, it makes Silly. zero sense. And then people calling other creators out for saying like, oh, well, you why are you putting it down to this? It's clearly not that. It's like, well, that's kind of sums up like how people feel about it, where they're not kind of willing to admit that like underlying racism is just everywhere, and it's awful. And I think that even Marvel kind of knew this, and I think that's the reason why they went down the route of making John Walker Captain America, because they make you really want to dislike John Walker, so that when Sam does get the shield, people are like, oh yeah, now Sam's got it. Yeah, they're not realizing that like it should have been Sam all along. It's more the fact that I think Marvel might have been thinking like, this is the way that we can try and win even the awfulest of racist fans over to Sam, which it's a clever way of doing it, don't get me wrong, but it's not a way that should have been even considered in the first place. And I don't know if that's just me thinking like really cynical about the whole thing, but that's what I thought, and but I think even that is kind of like an issue for me. Like, well, I'm like, well, why have I spotted that when it shouldn't really be about that? And like, I don't know, like this is the thing with the show, because it's so powerful. It makes you really like digest everything that's being put towards you. And look, like I'm not racist in the slightest, like at all. And
yeah,
I wouldn't want anyone to ever think that. But but that's what I took from it, and it's a shame that would even be considered. I mean, did you think that would it be an angle that they were going down, or no?
I think the show wanted to cover a lot of things that needed to be talked about, and I think they did it in a very tasteful manner. Because living in America with all this stuff going on right now too, and I'm sure it happens in other countries as well, we've seen a lot of these situations that are really tough to process, just throughout the whole concept and of what's going on in the world right now. And for me myself, like I have friends who when all these things started happening over the last year and a half, 2 years, and they started getting a lot more media attention, they're of color and are different religions. And the first thing I did was I called them and I asked them if they were okay, and we'd go out for like a drink or two or something like that, and we talk, or we'd get lunch, or we'd get dinner or something, and I would just let them know that I was there for them, even though like we don't have the same skin color, or I probably can't relate with some of the feelings that they have with what's going on in the world right now. But I think the show did things that other shows have never done, and it was successfully bring these conversations to the forefront. Subjects such as racism, as we talked about, or PTSD with military. We saw that in Bucky. We saw that in John Walker. I think you could talk about the pressures that of just being in the public eye, how everybody has a smartphone, and what's the right thing to do at the right time or the wrong time. I thought it was a really good show, and they covered a lot of big issues that haven't been really talked about. And like you were talking about how John Walker, I think the angle they were taking with John Walker was actually towards it was a slight towards Sam having the wrong skin color, because they had done it with Isaiah Bradley before, and I think in a sense they were almost trying to redo it again, because Sam was given the shield. Rhodey knows the shield was given to him, and he even asks Sam, why didn't you take the mantle up? Like he's almost like kind of disappointed in Sam for not taking it.
Yeah.
And Sam says, the first thing I said was it felt like it belonged to somebody else, and Steve said it didn't. And you see this whole play out of this process, and he turns the shield in upon being asked to the Smithsonian, and that's supposed to be where that shield stays forever. So now Sam feels like this whole like pressure is off of him, but then obviously we see the news at the end of the episode, and it's given to John Walker, and they even quoted Sam's speech from the Smithsonian, America needing a symbol to stand behind and to look up to. And then he says, "You're new Captain America," which is a total slap in the face. And you can see it on Sam's face and his reaction when he's like kind of holding his hands together and looking at the floor, like just realizing like, what did I just do? So I thought it was really interesting. And even they addressed the subject too when Bucky and Sam were having their little therapy session, playing frisbee with each other with the shield. It was a beautiful moment where Bucky actually said to Sam, he said, "Me and Steve never really thought about what it would be like to give the shield to a black man. And he said, I owe you an apology." And we had this great moment of like, Sam doing the same thing, being like, "You want some tough love? What you're doing isn't, it's not helping your situation. he said you're not. He said you're not avenging. You're revenging or something. I can't remember what he
Mm.
said. Like he was like doing all these funny things when he was like going through his list and like beating people up and like stopping what they were doing with that funny little smile that Sebastian Stan gave. But like Sam told him, he said, if you want some tough love, what you're doing isn't working. You need to go and do the right thing with these situations and handle it right, and so you can clear your own head. So I thought it was a really well done show. I do think that to your question though, I do think that it was kind of the angle, not the full angle. I don't think that this was like the only direction that the show wanted to go. I think they wanted to bring in John Walker. I think they wanted to, bring Sam in as Captain America eventually, obviously, and I just think this is the best way to do it.
Yeah. That again, yeah. I mean, that's the whole point of why I asked the question. Is I wanted to gauge what your reaction was that people out there probably might still think that it's a bad thing that Sam has the shield, and like it's just a shame that there's still people in this world that are so not willing to accept this kind of thing, and it just goes to show, like at the end of the season, like even when he's like refusing to fight, what's she called now? Carly, yeah. When he's refusing to fight Carly, and he's just like, and then obviously the speech at the end is obviously it's very Captain America, and
it was.
It's very just what, like it's just what Captain America does. It's like speeches and trying to take care of the people who need it most. And although some of it was a bit strange when he was calling them, like, maybe we shouldn't call them terrorists, but I mean, what they were doing was like the definition of a terrorist. But
yeah,
I get what it means, though. Obviously, like we need to find better ways of trying, instead of pigeonholing people and like just dismissing people because of a certain thing that they've done doesn't mean that they are that kind of person. And again, it's just about, I think it's more about just giving people like a little benefit to doubt half time, instead of just going all in on people and saying, look, you're like this because of like a preconception notion that I have of certain people. And again, it's just tying back to people just not really being educated enough to know these kind of things. And right. And hopefully the shows will have done a lot to educate a lot of the mainstream like mass of people watching this show, because obviously it was a huge success.
Insanely
obviously
huge.
That people need to kind of wake up and listen to this kind of stuff. Like there's obviously I'll kind of not try and like relate it into like terms of myself, but like there's obviously with stuff with George Floyd, which, by the way, like I'm very, very happy about the outcome of the trial last week, by the way, because that thoroughly deserved. Like the guy needs to rot in jail for the thing for what he did. Yeah. But again, that kind of sparked this whole thing and this whole movement that we've had over the past like 2 years. And I think a lot of it like of people like hiding behind social media and like attacking people on social media, and that being like a vehicle to like for people to do what they want and say what they want to people is an awful thing. And we've had it quite a lot over here with our football stars. A lot of our stars have been racially abused when they've not played a good game. And I'm not sure if that kind of stuff happens with in the NFL or anything like that, but like it's been a huge problem over the last like half a year, where it's become like a big issue now. And this weekend, the Premier League, which is obviously the big football league we have over here, and all the teams partaking in all the football leagues going down, and all the teams are doing like a social media blackout for this weekend. So like smart. There's going to be, but there's loads of games. Like there's a normal like football weekend, but there's going to be no social media at all. It's complete blackout, and like that's only like a small thing that like one football like company that does in the UK is doing, but it's something that probably should be looked at by other companies and doing something like as bold to like take notice, because the more that people know about it and the more that people take notice, the more that things are going to get done about it. And that's just something that I want to put out there, where I think that it should be that's a good example that they're setting, but I think it should be more, like, there should be more people doing that kind of stuff, and probably should have been done a lot sooner as well, as far as I'm concerned. And I've kind of had a rant about this on a football podcast that I do as well, called The Devil's Trident, where we were discussing this kind of stuff, and it's just something that really needs to be addressed more, and that's obviously why I wanted to have a bit more of a big discussion about it on this podcast with yourself. So yeah, let's hope that something like what's happened obviously last week kind of sets an example and really, really makes a big difference going forward.
Well, I think what's more impactful than pop culture and movies and TV shows that are so prominent anymore, you know, like there's a lot to be like thought about on that and said on that, where, like, I mean, look at the fandoms and how insane they go. And like a really good example, I know we're not talking about DC stuff right now, but like the Snyder Cut, you know, that got released and that was a phenomenal film. If you like DC like I do. And to go back and look at like all the things of like Zack Snyder's film that were totally ostracized and just like tortured out of that film and ripped out and ripped apart. They ripped an hour and a half out of that film. And he did his own thing with Zack Snyder's film. I mean, fans are letting Warner Brothers have it now, and they're uniting. They are 100% uniting on the former 2017 Justice League trailer now at Warner Brothers posted on YouTube. Last I looked at it, it's all comments are restore the Snyderverse or evolving that, and then the likes and dislikes on the video went from normal numbers to like the likes are like at 1,000 likes and the dislikes are at like 27,000 dislikes. Whoa. on Warner Brothers YouTube page, which is like people are uniting. And I think that there's a lot to be learned about this last year and a half, how hard it's been for everybody to see these things going on if you're genuinely a good person. And like and if you have a sympathetic heart towards people that are different than you, in whichever way they are, it could be your skin color, it could be your religion, it could be whatever it is. It's been a long year to a year and a half, and I think for all of us to be able to be stuck at home, sitting at our homes or at our jobs where we're still allowed to work, but you still see this stuff, and it's like you don't have a choice but to watch it or hear it at this point, you know, which is good. I think that people's eyes have been opened, their ears have been opened, and their minds have been opened as well. So.
Yeah, that's it. So we'll go off into a bit more of a cheerier subject from that. Obviously.
Yes, let's do it.
We're not dismissing it at all. We're just moving slightly across now and talking about something a bit more lighter. So My only real negative I have for this show is the Flag Smasher storyline. I feel like obviously there was the whole like lost like pandemic style storyline that was originally drafted up, but and they did a good job at trying to snip and cut and try and make it fit to the narrative that they ended up going with. But
right,
I feel like if you'd have taken out the Flag Smashers out of that show, it probably still would have been a decent show anyway. Like, they just didn't really offer too much. And Kylie Morgenthau was against, like, she was just kind of, I know obviously her views were like her messages were like good, and what she wanted to achieve was good, but doing it the wrong way was what they were going with. Like, oh, she's just confused and she doesn't know what she's doing. But I think they were confused about what she wanted to achieve at some time, because like sometimes she's there going like, we shouldn't be terrorists, we shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff, but then like straight up just murdering people and then being like, it's like, this is part of our message. It's like, well, no, this has never been part of your message. So that's one of the only criticism I can put to the show, is the fact that the Flag Smashers and Callie in particular just were a very strong bad guy or like group. Really, they weren't the most convincing, but I'm not sure if that's just because of obviously the change of the storyline or what. But like, what do you think of the Flag Smashers and Carly in particular?
see that, yeah, it's tough because I liked Carly as much as I didn't want to. And I liked that Sam and Bucky in that final episode both gave her an opportunity to be like, hey, like, what are you doing here? I think what worked for the Flag Smashers was that they are obviously the one world, one people concept from the comics, which was the same. I feel, they worked for like a general cause for John Walker and Sam and Bucky to eventually work together to stop in the final episode. I think that's like the biggest working plot point for the Flag Smashers was it was a common purpose for them to branch together, which they did work well together. Like I couldn't help but laugh at the Lincoln quote at the end of the finale when he when John Walker said it and he said, "Lincoln, really?" He said, "It's a great quote," and he said, "Not when you say it." I was like, that was hilarious when that happened. Because it worked that those guys could like put their differences aside. So I think the Flag Smashers' purpose of the show was to really give Sam, Bucky, and John a common purpose to work together. Yep. And even like it brought some emphasis on Zemo, not wanting super soldiers around. And I think he has a new respect for Bucky. So maybe his beef with Bucky's kind of done now. I'm thinking from what it seems like, if he was able to work with him. But like when he like took out the whole bus with his butler, I was like, when I saw
that was savage. That was an absolute savage move. To be fair,
when I saw the butler, I was like, that guy. Like, and then I think it worked for what they used it for. And I'm ultimately glad they probably changed their story or whatever their purpose in the show was, because it was probably too real life with the pandemic going on. So
yeah, well, yeah, I mean that's we have to take that in consideration and say, look, like fair play to what they managed to achieve with it. And I think I remember reading it very early on in the production process where they were like, complete redo of the script is happening. Like they have to stop it all because of the pandemic. It's too similar. That was even before like we'd even got it over here where they were talking about it. I was like, oh, okay, right. So things are really going to kick off. So I think that was even before like some of the reshoots that they were planning on doing, because obviously production shut down quite quickly, didn't it, because of what was taking place in Europe. So it's a shame that we'll never get kind of see that version of it, and hopefully the Flag Smashers would have been a better group to face. But for the whole thing, like I wasn't overly convinced. But I don't know. I think I was expecting more from them, really, because they were teamed up. Like the trailer like sold them as being like a really, really like cool group, or like one that was going to cause absolute like carnage, but they didn't really seem to do much, if I'm being honest. But
if they weren't going to be used in higher capacity, like they weren't, I guess I would have preferred more of John Walker and a little less of them. I mean, we got plenty of John Walker, but I would I feel like you could have had like these really epic battles between John Walker and Bucky for that shield a couple of times, like a couple separate times, and be like, this is the one where Bucky gets the shield back finally. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that final fight that they had could have been like their second or third attempt in trying to get the shield from Walker, and then maybe Walker wins the first one after he gets juiced up, Yeah. So that's kind of what like. But
that'd have been cool. Yeah, I think more emphasis on John would have been better, really. But I get what you're saying. Like they used them as a way to tie them all together, but they just seemed a bit meh for me, really. Right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll carry on with our Falcon and Soldier discussion. So we're back in 2 seconds.
So, Scott, as you may be aware, there's a bit of a lockdown on.
Yes, I had heard that.
Lots of people have suddenly got a lot of time on their hands and a smorgasbord of content to choose from to fill that time. How can people find the best nerdy content when there's so much out there?
It's difficult, but don't worry, I have developed a system to find the good stuff.
I'd love to hear it.
So basically, there are 3 criteria that all the best content contains. Animated characters playing in a sport, a team of misfits overcoming impossible odds, and the acting talents of Wayne Knight.
But what if people don't want to watch Space Jam on repeat?
What?
I've got another idea. How about a podcast from 2 down-to-earth guys discussing the best in books, films, comics, music, game, and TV series?
That sounds amazing. I'm in.
Excellent. What do we call it?
Into the Nerdiverse, I reckon.
I'd listen to that.
Damn right you would.
And welcome back, guys. Thank you for sticking with us. We are talking about the Falcon Winter Soldier, breaking it down. We're having a big old chat about it. So we've covered already some thoughts about it, the race issues, Sam as Captain America, the Flag Smashers. Now we're going to get onto something that I am very, very, very happy about. Only because I said from the very beginning that this was going to happen, and I was right. I'm not always right about certain things, but you know what? Everyone was saying can't be true, but I was like, it's happening. And Michael, you can back me up here. We're saying it every week on our live streams. The power broker was Sharon Carter, and I knew that was coming. And I knew it was coming, and people are going to say, yeah, it's really obvious when you think about it. Yeah, but no one was saying that when it was happening. People were saying it can't be Sharon Carter because they were saying they were referring to the person as a he, and I was like, don't matter. What do they do with one vision? They threw true. So did a lot of online YouTubers and creators who were saying the same thing. But I was like, not buying it. Like they did the same thing in One Division. They threw us off the scent countless times to make it think that Agatha Harkness wasn't going to be Agatha Harkness. But of course she was, because why would she not be? So yeah, the power broker. Sharon Carter. She never confirms she's the power broker though, does she? She never says, no, I'm power broker. It's like Batroc comes in and goes, oh, so you're the power broker, and it's like she kind of just gives a look like, well, and what? Of course, yeah. And then it kind of sums it up a bit more in the post-credit scene. But like, although the reveal was not the most epic of reveals and wasn't like the big like, oh my god, she's the power broker, I think it has more of an implication going forward in the MCU than it did in that show. But I mean, the big question is like, why Sharon? Why have you decided to be bad? Like, your auntie is Peggy Carter. What are you playing at? She'd be turning in a grave. This is ridiculous. How dare you disregard the Carter name and drag it through the mud? Even though, yeah, it made her slightly more interested, really. Because I mean, I like Agent 13, but she's far more interested in being the power broker than she is being Agent 13, if I'm being honest.
So because you were right in all this, I'm going to take a drink for you because you were 100% correct on this.
I'll tell you what, I'll join you, but I'll take I'm not drinking tonight, but I'll go and take a swig of this red wine.
That's all I'm going to do. I just poured up just a little bit.
So let's have a cheers. Yeah. Oh god, that tastes like vinegar. That's been open too long. Yeah,
mine was pretty good. Mine's Crown Peach.
Oh, lovely.
So
Sharon, talk to me about Sharon.
You know, deep down, I always knew that she probably was the power broker, because like all signs were pointing towards her like being the power broker, and I think the show was trying to throw us off with the pronouns of, you know, well, we'd like to speak with him, or he doesn't want to have a meeting with someone right now, you know, like things like that. And I think it was all just like, as a TV show would do, throw you off so you don't know. The reason I didn't want to believe it was because of I told you off recording, I didn't want them to bastardize the character of Sharon Carter, because she is a great character. Agent 13 is amazing, and like she's been in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she was so cool. Like, this is the character I wanted to see come back as a good guy, I guess. But I thought about it more afterwards, and I was like, you know, you got to think of it how when she got snapped back, because she was confirmed in like the blip and everything, that she didn't get what everybody else got. Like, she was still not pardoned, and her own country turned her back on her, and she was kind of stuck having to fend for herself. And so I feel like her making this life as the power broker was her just being a survivalist in a way. I think it was, Matt did every live stream. He did say she's the power broker, and I would say no, she's not. Like I don't think it's her, but I deep down I knew it was her, and it was a really good call. So I got to give you credit on that. But I didn't want it to come true because of Sharon Carter's legacy and like who she was. But I think it was a really good twist to put into the show ultimately, because I think people expected it, but at the same time, nobody expected it in terms of Sharon Carter. Like they were like, hey, come on, like she's related to Peggy Carter. But at the same time, she wasn't pardoned. Like she until the end of this show, like, and she should have been, like, hands down. The events of Civil War were still in effect, and I will say gladly, I did get that right, that this show was going to tie in to the events of Civil War still, that we weren't going to be done with those yet, that people weren't going to be fully pardoned, that there was still going to be consequences, and I called that for like a year and a half ago. I was excited about that when that came true. So I'm excited to see what she's going to do as the power broker now, because obviously they don't have any more super soldier serums. Like those are gone, and that's been confirmed. Like she said, super soldiers might be off the menu, but we now have full access to the government's secrets and weapons. And I was like, well, shit. Like,
yeah.
I don't think she'll be the extent of like working for Hydra, obviously, but I think she's definitely going to be, I don't know what her situation is, but it's going to be good. She's going to add a lot of flair to the MCU going forward.
Yeah, I think she could possibly be one of the big bads for like the ground level heroes. I think that she could probably turn up in a lot of the Disney Plus shows and some of the more grounded films that happen. Like I don't know, like maybe the likes of Spider-Man and probably Armor Wars, She-Hulk, them kind of shows. I could imagine she might turn up in, just because. I don't know. Like she's obviously high up now within. She's back to her old job, but she's obviously working with someone who's got a lot of money, and I'm hoping that they're going to tie it. I'd love them to tie it back to Justin Hammer. That'd be amazing, but I can't see it, unfortunately. Like that'd be my ultimate. Get Justin Hammer back, but I don't think it's going to be him. A part of me thinks it might be something to do with Sonny Birch's character. Sonny Birch's boss from Ant-Man 2.
Yeah,
because no one knows who that guy is, and
it's true.
It's a good point. Or she could have even been doing power broker stuff before that. To be fair, before the snap, because she was obviously on the run. She could have started a power broker life then, or at least
picked it back up.
Yeah, she could have put the wheels in motion at that point, and then when it all kind of came back, she was like, I'm just going to capitalize on it because I can. I think there's more story to go into it. I think they're probably going to show us how that happened, but they've got a lot of criminal organizations that she could be working with, and it's just going to be interesting to find out which one it is. So I don't know who you think it's going to be, but I'd love it to be Justin Hammer, because I just love Justin Hammer.
I love Justin Hammer too. I think it'll be someone who, like you were saying, has definitely been involved with other people too, with Sharon and Sonny Birch. I could see that, but we haven't seen that person. We don't know who that is. Maybe. Oh, wait a minute!
What if it's the Kingpin?
It could be Kingpin, but I want to say Norman Osborn.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he's coming, and we know it, but like. Norman Osborn in the comics and in the Spider-Man movies and TV shows, mainly like the animated shows, he is in charge of a lot of big companies and projects that involve like Rhino and Vulture and all these other people getting amplified and in certain ways. So now it would make sense for her to say, you know, well, we don't have super soldier serums, but we have government secrets and weapons. And so like maybe like Norman Osborn could like start bringing in some of the bigger Spider-Man villains of like, we have the tech to bring these guys back, or we
That's
have
a
the
good
ability,
shout.
or we have the abilities to make the serums to amplify these people. So it could definitely be Norman Osborn. I don't know. It's exciting to think.
That's a good shout. Yeah, I love that. I love that. To be fair,
I will lose my mind if that's.
if you're correct, I will down a whole bottle of wine. I'll make a promise to you right now. I'll down a whole bottle of red wine if that's the case. It may kill me, but I'm willing to take that chance because
you can do that.
That would be the best.
You can do that, or we can have a snake bite together.
Oh yeah, well that's fine. But I'm going to do that. I'm not going to kill myself by time. I'm obviously going to have a snake bite with you. That'd be the far more easier option. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now we move on from Sharon. Let's talk about Bucky. Like, at the start, it felt like they were really hitting hard with his story and the fact that he's obviously dealing with PTSD and trying to make amends, and they were like really hitting home with that. And you thought that was going to be like a big recurring theme throughout the whole series. But was it me, or did it seem like it only really was touched on in like 2 episodes, the first episode and the last episode? Throughout the whole of the series, there weren't actually that much of his PTSD. There was like little like snippets of it, like with his where he has the therapy session with Sam, but again, it's still not huge. If you think about what they were outlining in that first episode, they were like, look, this where our guys are at now. Sam's given away the shield. Bucky's really struggling with his PTSD, and at the end of it, Sam takes the shield back, and Bucky's PTSD is kind of gone, or he's putting that to bed, and he's not the Winter Soldier anymore. But there weren't that much of it throughout the actual season, which I was a bit disappointed with, because it obviously you've named the show Falcon Winter Soldier, but like there wasn't too much of Bucky's. There weren't much of an arc for Bucky really throughout the show. So, and I was looking for more, is what I'm trying to say. I was hoping that they were going to explore it a bit more, and like, although to be fair, the Wakanda thing was pretty epic, weren't it? I don't think did we speak about that? I don't think we did that episode, did we? No, that was all right. So let's get up to that. So the Wakanda White Wolf draining the Winter Soldier stuff out of him. That was cool. I enjoyed. That was very emotional as well. Like I proper felt for Bucky at that point.
I cried during that scene, man. Like I was watching it the first time because I like. You know, I hear what you're saying, how they say how you're saying that like you didn't get enough of like what the PTSD margin in the show was for Bucky. But I think for me is I got what I needed and I understood it. And because working in like EMS, you see things sometimes that they don't bother you too bad, but they stay with you. And the things that Bucky has seen and experienced, they sit with him and they hurt him. And they hurt him because he didn't help people, he hurt people. So I think they got the point across when he killed that man's son, and he's trying to find a way to make amends with him, no matter what it's going to be, you know. And we see the reference towards him sleeping in his apartment with no furniture and using basically a rock as a pillow, as Sam referenced in the Winter Soldier movie when they were trying to get Bucky. Well, now Bucky's doing this. He's sleeping in an apartment with no furniture with using a rock as a pillow because that's the life that he's used to. I think that the whole White Wolf thing was a beautiful moment because he's so scared that he's going to snap. And then when she says you're free, he starts bawling, you know, like that's huge. But he needs ultimately more therapy than that, because that's just to get the words out of his head so he can't be used as a weapon anymore. That was, you know, now he has to do the harder part, I would say, and try to make amends with all these people in the right ways. And all I wanted out of this show for Bucky, I guess, what was some good action, which we got, And then also I wanted to see him sit down with Sam, basically sit with a veterans counselor and talk. And for me, that was probably still one of my favorite scenes of the entire series, was them just tossing the shield around, talking to each other about how they can both improve. And Sam finally got real with him and was like, you need to take care of this list the right way. And then he said, I love what Bucky said. He said, there's probably like 12 people that I've done that to. And Sam said, we'll start with one and then do another. And there was this huge moment where like they kept the aspect of Sam being a veterans counselor in this show, and they really went back to that and put that in his character. It was in his wheelhouse when he was able to talk to Carly. So I really loved how they had that scene with Bucky and getting to see him have the closure of he can now live. And if you watch back that in the finale, when he saved those people, when he punched that device like 7 or 8 times and ripped that door open to get them out before the vehicle blew up or fell, he got thanked by somebody, and he actually stopped what he was doing and was rather surprised that he got thanked. And they said, thank you, Mr. Barnes, or something like that to him. And they knew who he was. They knew exactly the things he'd done. They knew he'd been pardoned. They knew exactly who he was. And I was like, that's the first time he's actually been truthfully thanked by anybody other than Steve.
So that was a huge moment.
There's a lot for me in it, and I think there was enough of the PTSD syndrome that that Bucky was still fighting, and seeing that he crossed off the list was, I think, a closing in this chapter, and seeing him hit on Sarah Moore at the family get together at the final episode was even better. So to see him finally moving on with his life was better. It was good. Bucky can finally move on and be a hero. Yeah.
No. That makes sense. So let's switch gears and talk about the big cameo. Let's talk about Julia Louis-Dreyfus. As Valentino Fontaine. Right. So I think last time we spoke about this, I'm not sure if we did this when we covered it. I'm pretty sure we did.
It was a live stream.
But yeah, we did the live stream, didn't we, this one? So you were telling us about her comic book like story and what she relates to. Like a lot of people were pointing towards the Madam Hydra thing. But I think at the end of the final episode, I think they kind of definitely put that kind of thing to bed, didn't they? Really?
Yeah, they did.
I don't think anyone's really going to think that she's like Madam Hydra. And I'm glad they didn't go down that route. I'm glad they kind of just shun that off and been like, no, that's not what she's part of. Because again, anytime they downplay Shield, it hurts me inside and a piece of me dies. So I'm glad they haven't done that, because that would have made me very sad. But first of all, an amazing cameo. She is a big name, and for the people who don't know who she is, she's the star of Veep, which is a huge show, and a little show called Seinfeld. She was
a little show called Seinfeld.
A little show called Seinfeld, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah.
It's an absolute comedy gem. So she's obviously a very big name, and to have her come into the MCU is a big deal for the MCU, really, and just for anyone who's a fan of her. It's cool to see her. Now, my question for you is, she's here, and I actually read something today, which I posted on my social media site, which the producer of Falcon and Soldier stated that she was supposed to first appear in Black Widow. So she's going, which means she's going to be in Black Widow, essentially, is what we're saying. Because she was like, she's going to return in another MCU property, which means that, and she said that she's supposed to debut in Black Widow. Black Widow was filmed and pretty much completed before this even started, ages before this. So she's going to be in Black Widow, wouldn't she? Really, I think it's hard to deny that she's going to be in there. But I think that all that does now is tee up more those suggestions that they're making a Thunderbolts team, aren't they?
Yeah,
they have to be.
Yeah.
If that final episode where she finds out that obviously the Flag Smashers have been blown up by Zemo's butler, right? So she must be in contact with Zemo. She must be in contact with the butler, and like she obviously must have some ties with either Taskmaster and Dreykov in Black Widow, or obviously Thaddeus Ross. Like they're putting together a team, and the only thing I'm annoyed about actually is the fact that they killed off Batroc, because I think he would have been cool as being part of the Thunderbolts. They could have put him in there.
I agree.
But regardless of that, like they must be setting up some sort of Thunderbolts team, some anti-Avengers teams, Dark Avengers, and I think that she could be front in that team with maybe Zemo as well, because she's talking to Zemo. They're gonna have to bust him out. He's going to probably round up a load of bad guys in at the raft and be like, "Come on, lads, we're going to go cause some mayhem." And John Walker's going to be like, "Oh, they could even do like a parallel thing where John Walker comes to like break Zemo out."
They could,
like at the end of Civil War, where like where Cap turns up and he just like comes out of the shadows. Like, imagine if they just paralleled that with John Walker, and you'd see Zemo in his cell and John Walker like appears out of the shadow, and you're like, "This is well good. That'd be sick." I
would love it.
So Thunderbolts, do we think that's the thing now? And do we think that she is going to be heading that, or do you have a different angle that they might be going down with that?
I think that's exactly the road they're going down, because she's had 2 roles. Valentino's had 2 roles in the comics, and it was actually Agent 14 or Madam Hydra. Madam Hydra was probably too much of a jump because it was such a different storyline, and it's a big one, but it's like such a it's a reach. But Agent 14, her Agent 14 side of it is she helps assemble the Dark Avengers or the Thunderbolts, which I think is exactly what's happening. So and it's funny because me and you both had this crazy idea that this show would tie into Black Widow before all of the release dates got changed and everything. So we're like, yeah, well, this show's going to tie into Black Widow somehow. I remember us talking about how maybe like Black Widow's going to have a flashback of Bucky as the Winter Soldier. Yeah, you know, for her, because Widow talked about fighting him before.
Yeah.
And being sent on a mission for him, and how he showed up and how she barely survived. So I think we're still going to see that in the Black Widow movie. And I think that this show and this series and this show and this movie are going to be tied in that way. So, but the Valentino actually coming into now both of these shows, because I do believe we will see her in Black Widow. It's going to be interesting to see who she's wanting to get, because I don't think this bodes well for Red Guardian. So. No. We already got one shielded warrior, so I don't think this bodes well for Red Guardian. So if you need to get that Red Guardian Funko Pop, you better go buy it now. Because you're probably gonna have limited time after that movie comes out.
Yeah.
But I think it's exciting to think about the future of what her role is going to be. And I want to see what other Thunderbolts they bring in. I think it's going to be for sure John Walker and Zemo. But then the doors are wide open for who else it could be. I mean, it could be Thaddeus Ross as Red Hulk. As Red Hulk, something could go wrong, and he could
see. That would make a lot of sense, because we didn't see him through the Falcon Winter Soldier. Like, we had a new Secretary of State, and it wasn't Thaddeus Ross. No. So either Thaddeus Ross has gone up the chain, or he's gone sideways, and it would make a lot of sense if he did. I think the only way you'd be able to do it though is if they did it in like a post-credit scene, maybe, because I think the majority of the film's going to take place in between Civil War and Infinity War. And obviously we know, which we saw Thaddeus Ross in Infinity War as himself. So obviously if the change was happening, it wasn't happening at that point. So it might have to be a thing where it's like a flash forward almost. Like maybe just after the blip. So like literally after Tony's funeral, he gets approached by her and she's like, come on, I've got this serum, by the way. Remember that serum you wanted to experiment with? I've got a proper one. We've done it. Like, we've created it. Do you want to have a piece of it? And he goes, all right, then. Red Hulk. There we go. Boom. Because and the good thing is, even if people aren't like clued up on like who everybody is, like he's going to be a predominant figure throughout that film, isn't it? Because we've seen flashbacks where he's like chasing her down, or she's on the run from him, or at least. Yeah. So it's not like it's going to be a massive stretch where they just show him at the end randomly turn into Red Hulk. They'll be like, well, yeah, we know who that guy is. Even the people who've not watched all the films could watch that as a film itself and be like, that's the Thaddeus Ross guy that we've been seeing throughout the film. What's he doing? Oh, is this big red guy now? That's pretty mental. Even for like the casual viewer would understand that. So
like,
so it would make a lot of sense, and that's how you tie the again, because even if you think about it that way as well, her being in the post-credit scene is a big pull as well, because you're like, wait a minute, that's Julie Dreyfus, and then she drops her name, and you're like, oh fuck, that's mad. Yeah, exactly. So I think even then that's a big thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the post-credit scene, because that'd be sick, and I'd love that.
So the other thing too
please
give
us that.
If it's not in Black Widow, my other prediction is that it's going to be in the She-Hulk miniseries on Disney Plus. Because Bruce Banner is going to be in that show. We know he's going to be. He's going to have some correlation with it. And I think that show could be like a breaking point for Thaddeus Ross to be like, I'm so sick and tired of all these super soldiers doing this. Like maybe like She-Hulk gets created and he feels the need to like take matters into his own hands, and he takes his own serum or something like that. And he's like, I'm sick of this. Like, if everybody else is going to do it and everyone's going to break the rules, then I'm going to. And I could see him taking a serum and then all of a sudden just being, like all of a sudden turning big and red. And like
we'll get Abomination as well, aren't we? So like, why not just put all your Hulk star characters in one film? I mean, one show. You got She-Hulk, you got Red Hulk, you got Abomination and Hulk. Just put them all in there. There we go. Just the Hulkiest show ever. All the
perfect realm.
It is the perfect
realm for him.
Okay, so we're closing to the end of the podcast now. So what I'm going to do is, we've spoke about Zemo. I'm just going to shout out the fact that the release, the Zemo cut, was a massive success. And yes! I'm so glad we got to see more of Daniel Brah dancing, because that is just dad dancing down to a T. What an absolute legend. But to be fair, there's not actually that much we need to really discuss about Zemo, because again, we know his motives, we know exactly what he was trying to do, and there was no way he was going to really make his way out of that situation with being free, was it? He was never going to get a pardon or anything. So, but again, he's where he needs to be. He's in the raft, and that's where we're probably going to pick up on his story. So I think what we're going to finish on now is so the loose ends of the characters we've got for the show. Then like predictions about what we think is going to happen. So let's start with Zemo. Like, what's Zemo's next step now? Because I mean, is it the Thunderbolts, or are we done with Zemo?
He'll be in the Thunderbolts. They don't. The MCU doesn't preserve villains if they don't plan to use them again. Because typically, in every MCU film or show, we see them get killed or they die. We saw Batroc die. We saw Red Skull. What his fate was. He's probably never going to be used again. We saw. I mean, I'd love to see Red Skull again, but realistically, we're not going to. Like. He's the Soul Stone Keeper. That's where he's at. Iron Man villains have all basically died. Like, the MCU is really good, and it's kind of bad that they're good at it. They're really good at killing off a villain if they don't plan on using them again. So I think it's safe to say that Zemo's coming back in some way, shape, or form. Thunderbolts.
Yep. So I'm assuming you feel the same way with John Walker as well.
Yes, John Walker.
That's a given, isn't it? There's no point in really entertaining any other idea apart from the fact he's going to be.
John's different though. I think John could be a Thunderbolt, but John's different though, because like, it's worth noting how Lamar always said to him, "You've always made the right choices in battle," and in that final moment where Carly takes that armored car of government officials and tries to just run him off a ledge, which is inexcusable to me. I don't know why Sam didn't fight her after that. But that's besides the point, I guess.
But I mean, she was straight up trying to murder people.
She was going to murder them, Yeah.
Balls to her.
Yeah. So when he does that, he looks at Carly. He can go after her. And he still has his homemade shield, and then he looks at that vehicle, and then he goes after the vehicle to save them. He wants to be a hero. He has his moment inside his own head, and he makes the right choice. He makes the right choice in battle again, as Lamar said he always did, and he tries to save those people, and he fails. But Sam and Bucky have his back, and I think at that moment, that's when John knows, I am not Captain America. I was never made to be Captain America. And he even gives Sam a head nod, and Sam gives him a head nod back. Like, there's a mutual respect between the two that are dudes that may not like each other very much, but they're kind of like, I'll just say it because it's, like, you don't fuck with me, I'm not going to fuck with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the way they looked at each other. So excuse my language, but that's kind of the look they gave each other.
You are right. That is the best way of explaining that look.
So
it's like
I think
a mutual, like, yeah, let's not fuck with each other.
John could actually maybe come back as a hero for a movie or something. Like, maybe like the Avengers reach out to the Dark Avengers during like Secret Invasion or something, or like something crazy. Like they need more people. They need help. Like, it could be a crazy build-up. We'll see what happens.
So don't write John off. He's not necessarily not necessarily a bad guy. Because I mean, there was a redemptive arc to him at the end, wasn't it, really? And you kind of, again, you go through the phase where you hated him, and then you're like, oh no, he's still a bit of a dick, and then you're like, oh my god, that was brutal, why did he do that? And then you're like, oh, actually, no, I feel sorry for him. Oh, what a good guy. He's actually done the right thing there.
He's trying. He's trying.
He had a whole thing going on it was cool. So so that's John Walker. That's Zemo covered. Sharon Carter, she's obviously just going to be knocking around in the MCU going forward, fucking shit up for people with some really good tech and that. So, like, I think we should be scared, very scared about what she can do. Bucky, what's Bucky going to do now? Where's he going?
He's I don't want to give him the degradation of being a side character. Because he's not. He's a main character in the MCU. But I think that in terms of, like, for the future of his character, he's a sidekick towards, like, Captain America, and always will be. I forgot to mention it earlier, how Bucky thought the only thing that he had left of family was that shield, which got revealed, and that's why he was pissed off when Sam handed it to the government. And apparently the government doesn't even own it. So it was kind of interesting to see that that come through. So I think wherever that shield goes, Bucky is going to follow, and he's going to be Sam's right-hand man, as Sam was for Steve. I think he will be in Captain America 4, and I hope he has a lot better action sequences than he did in this show. And I think he will, because he's going to be back to being a lot stronger than the things that they're fighting. So I think we're going to get a little more of, like, the overpowered Bucky again, because the serum wasn't no one's going to have a serum that's improved compared to his and Steve's serum. So we're going to get a lot more of that. And I think that was the purpose of the serum in this series, to show that, like, this serum was technically tested and experimented on and worked on, and it was improved. So I think Bucky's going to be a sidekick.
So that kind of leads us to obviously we've got, like you've just said it there, like, we're getting a Captain America 4, which we know Sam is going to be heading his own film, which is that I'm very excited about that. And as soon as that news broke, I was like, that is excellent, because the worst thing they could have done was just be like, okay, right, we've got Cap and we've got we've got Sam as Cap, and we've got Bucky, and they're just kind of doing their own thing and knocking around, and like we know Captain America is like top level like character, so they needed to give Sam his own film, and to kind of carry it on in the Captain America like franchise. Again, it's great because they could have quite easily gone, right, tell you what, let's just do 3 or 4 more seasons of Falcon Winter Soldier, and it would have been like, no, like now that you've given him the shield, and now he is Cap, like let's give him like let's give him the film that he deserves. So I'm very excited about that, and Bucky again should return in that as well. But that just kind of blows up the whole Falcon Winter Soldier season 2, because I was convinced we were going to get another few more seasons of this, but I also didn't think it was going to end the way it did. So
I agree.
I mean, I'm definitely not sad, because maybe we could, but I'd much prefer it to be a film. Like, to prefer, like, if they've got an idea for what a show could be, that's fine. Maybe take Sam out of that and put what's it called? That whacking. What's it called? Whacking the fella who got the wings that Sam gave him the wings to. What's it called now? Torres, that's it. Yeah, Torres. Yeah. So maybe it could be that. Maybe Torres and Bucky could team up and they could carry it on. Falcon Winter Soldier, but it's actually Falcon, a new Falcon. Maybe that's the way they could do it.
I think Torres just joins him. I think Torres just joins the party. You know, it's going to be like
part of the crew.
For those who played Super Smash Brothers, it's going to be like when Torres gets his wings fixed, and it's going to be like the new Avenger approaching. Like,
it's going to just fly in and be like, "What's up, guys?"
Yeah, it's going to be what it is.
Nice. I don't even get that reference, so I wish I did get that reference, but
I'll show it to you
that I don't. No, thanks, pal. So finally, let's talk about Young Avengers. So we had talk about the rumblings of Young Avengers with obviously Wiccan and Speed from one division, and now we've got Eli Bradley, who is a Patriot in the comics. So, and they made a big deal of like having him around and really putting him in the scenes that really, really mattered. So do we think that there's going to be maybe in Captain America 4 there might be not a passing of the shield, but maybe like a nurturing of a character and like developing a character such as Eli into a future Captain America, or maybe just someone who's teams up with Captain America as Patriot. Do you think that's something that we could see before we get a big team up Young Avengers film?
I think so. I think it's going to be a little ways still, because they're going to need some of these actors to grow up a little bit and become older. So realistically, if we're going to get it, it's going to be in like 10 years or less, or maybe 8 to 10 years, I think, film wise in real life. But like they're going to nurture these characters into being the future of the MCU. I have no doubt in my mind. And Eli Bradley is going to be probably the leader of them. But what's the cool thing about Eli is that there's a lot of unanswered things about him where he might have, maybe he's enhanced already because of his grandfather. You know, like it's possible that like he has it in his blood basically.
Oh, like DNA, yeah.
Because they like Isaiah said they experimented on his blood. Elijah is his grandson, so he might have it already, and it might just like activate at a certain age, or like it just might happen for him. Like he like gets in a fight at school or something, and he hits someone too hard, or who knows? Because when he was playing basketball, you didn't see any signs of him being overly athletic, but maybe he's also been told by his grandfather to suppress it and hide it from the world.
Well, yeah. So if he was trying to hide himself, why would he want to draw more attention to himself by having a superpowered grandson? Like it's only gonna draw people to what's going on and ask more questions, aren't they? And his whole thing was like, nobody wanted me to be the Black Captain America. Nobody had any interest in me. Like I was better off being dead, because if people found out, it'd only kind of ruin everything for me and for my family. Which I'm glad, by the way, at the end that he had that moment with Sam where he has the Smithsonian statue, and they put his history into the Captain America history. That was a lovely moment.
I cried.
That was a really emotional bit. So that was really cool, and they probably wouldn't have done that if they weren't teeing up more of a story with him and Eli. So fingers crossed we do get it.
And the biggest thing is too with Patriot is his shield in the comics is actually like a replica of Isaiah Bradley's. So in one of our previous live streams, we talked about how it's like, well, maybe he'll get a shield from Isaiah. But then I look back on those comic issues, and his shield is not round. It's the triangular shield.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Patriot's shield. So maybe Elijah will get his grandfather's shield. I don't know, but I do think they're setting it up. I think we're going to see more of Elijah Bradley.
Cool. That's cool. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for the prospect of that and the prospect of Young Avengers. But you know what, Michael? That's we've kind of reached the end of our discussion here. Like we've been chatting for a good hour and a bit now, and I think it's time. I'm pretty sure it's time we let the people go. I mean, firstly, I want to say thanks to the people who have listened to us go deep diving into Falcon Winter Soldier. The show deserved it. We loved it. And I'm glad we finally had to get this proper discussion, because we only got like a couple of 15-minute, 20-minute conversations over the past few weeks, but now we had a good chance to proper get at it. So I'm glad we did this, man. Yeah,
I'm too. And it was nice to like cover the full series and like context and not just like be, a short conversation.
No, that's true. So obviously we'll have you back on at some point in the near future. I'm sure that we're going to do something together at some point. But do you want to let the people know where they can find you? Oh, possibly. Well, do you want to let other people know where they can find you, man?
I am the AvengNerd. I'm at twitch.tv/the AvengNerd. I am a variety streamer. I play multiplayer games, story-based games. We've been playing Breath of the Wild lately. I have 2 podcasts out. One is for fantasy football or fantasy sports in general, or just sports and headlines in general. Right now, that's called Nerd Sports on with John and Mike. We've been talking about all sorts of stuff. The NFL draft is coming up tonight, so we're going to be meeting up next week, talking about all the draft picks over the past 3 days and what was good, who busted, who hit home runs. We'll see what happens with that. And then the Nerd Rebellion podcast is different but similar to this. We talk about pop culture TV shows. I've had Matt on with me before on there too, so we kind of are partnering up a lot and having fun together. So we'll be doing some things with Loki on that end for sure. I know I'm going to plan on covering Loki with some guests on there. So don't be afraid to check that out. They're on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, on like 6 platforms through Anchor. But the last thing I can think of is I'm at Twitter at NerdVenge, capital N, capital A. Instagram's the Avenger 2020. We do art streams on Twitch as well sometimes, so you guys can come and do art with me and send me your artwork in the Discord. And that's all I got. So that's where I'm at.
Cool. Thank you very much, Michael. So yeah, you might as well find out where you can find me on all the social media platforms as well. So everything on social media at ThatMCU Guy, apart from Twitter, which is at ThatMCUGuyUK. So that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and then you can also find this podcast on all the other podcast providers that you have, just in case you wanted to listen or watch this. You can find it on all platforms that provide that kind of stuff. And make sure you go to Etsy and get one of my Marvel
I didn't wear my
t-shirts.
Shirt. I didn't wear my shirt.
It's okay. I made some new ones today, by the way. There's going to be a new. There's one division line that's out at the moment. Hey, look at that t-shirt. That's cool. Is that a Rockstars one?
It's no. This is Under Armour. This is like they don't sell these anymore. So.
Oh, well, that's a very cool t-shirt. Yeah. So I've started making the Falcon Winter Soldier line. I started them today actually, so they'll be coming out probably in about a week and a half time. Will there be some new designs for the latest show? So that's it, really. Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you again to my guest Michael, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is part of the That Thing You Might Like network. Here's something you might like. Find us on socials at TTYL Network.